right up here by the stairs by Mr. Leonard.
Come on down. I didn't think this was going to happen, but did you know that this is my favorite part of Sunday morning? Do you have everyone who wants to come down, Charles? Or you not coming down? I promise I won't bite. Okay, that's okay. Good morning, kids. How are you doing? Really good? Are you sure? Good. Are you about ready to do anything even better? Okay. Do you know what's in here? A present. It is. It's a present. It's a gift. What do you think's in there? It's really heavy. Peanut butter's in there? Would that be a good gift? A hammer? That's a Bible? Okay, that's good. If you got to pick a gift, the best gift ever, what would it be? A Bible would be, okay. What else? You would like a hammer? You want a Spider-Man? What else? What would you be? What would you be most? You want a skeleton? Okay. Marsha, that was a hammer and a skeleton. Just so you know. Okay. Go ahead. What would you want out of everything in the world? You would want a skateboard. Okay, I like a skateboard. What else? Come on. Gotta have something in there. You're probably all thinking something, right? Like if you... Go ahead. One last one. A gecko. Now. What if... Okay, that's enough. Okay. What if you got it? Like, what if you thought about the best present ever? Parents, Christmas is coming up, just so you know, so you're welcome for all these wonderful ideas. Geckos, lizards, hammers, skeletons, skulls. You're welcome. A snake. Yeah. What if you got it? What would you do if you got the best present ever?
Scare my mom.
You'd scare your mom, yeah. Would you tell someone about it? Would you be excited? Yeah. Who would you tell? You'd tell Mommy. Who else would you tell? No one. Who else would you tell? Dad. Who else would you tell? You tell me. Well, you're trying to scare people, yes, but if you had the best present ever, wouldn't you tell your family and your friends and everybody you knew that you get the best present ever? Why? Well, because they love you. They'd be excited too, right? They'd be excited about it. We're going to hear about a man who got the best gift ever. So this man was demon-possessed. He couldn't live his life. He was just struggling in so many ways, and Jesus came and saved him. And so I want to talk about what he did next. Are you ready? So remember, this guy was in real bad shape. So, and those who saw this man sitting clothed and in his right mind were afraid. And those who saw it told them how it happened to him who had been demon-possessed, and about the swine, because Jesus had cast demons into pigs. You know what swine are? Swine are pigs. Lots and lots of pigs. I know, right? Then they began to plead with Jesus to depart from the region. And when he got into the boat, this is the important part, are you listening? He who had been demon-possessed begged Jesus that he might be with him. Why? Well, Jesus had given the most wonderful gift ever, given him his life back. However, Jesus did not permit him, but said, go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he, God, has had compassion on you. Then the man departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis all that Jesus had done for him, and all marveled. So, what did Jesus do, or what did the man do when Jesus had given him the best gift ever? He did what you would do. He was excited about it. He went home and he told, as Jesus told him to, everyone that he knew what had happened. And that's the point right now. Do you have your full attention? Show of hands if I have your attention. Okay, that's the point. Here's the point. Jesus gives us better gifts than anything that could ever be in that box. Jesus gives us our freedom from all the bad things we've ever done. And what he's asking us to do is share how we've been freed. Because if you share how Jesus has freed us, if you share all the good things that God has done, it gives people hope that the same thing can happen to them. Did that make sense to you? Okay. Let me see your happy smiling faces. Okay. You guys can go. You can go back to your moms and dads. You can go to our kids' church, okay? What do you think is in there? Okay, go on. I'm not going to open it. No, I'm not doing that. Well, you can talk about what's in it as you guys are having a great time. Well, good morning again. Thanks for the 3 of you who said good morning to me again. Appreciate that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Man, that really is one of the best parts about Sunday morning. I love that part. That's so much fun. So if you don't know me, there's a lot of new faces today, so welcome. Welcome to Limitless Church again. My name is Brandon. I'm the other half of our teaching team. Justin, being the taller, better looking one, is gone hunting, which we're all probably envying a little bit. Just maybe? No, just me? Anyway, I want to thank you for the opportunity to teach you. It's something I actually enjoy doing. I teach math for a living. Don't worry, I'm not teaching math, but I really do appreciate you letting me be here, sharing what God has taught me that I want to relay to you, that we can learn together about a little bit more about what God has in store for us. So thank you for the opportunity. Today, we're going to talk about hope. The hope that salvation brings. If you get 1 point out of today's message, it's that salvation gives hope. It's the only thing that actually will bring hope. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Our world right now, if you haven't noticed, man, our eyes have been just closed, really. Our world is in a pretty hopeless place. And sometimes we look at people and we kind of consider them helpless. We're going to study an apparent helpless case that wasn't. I actually knew one, by the way. I taught in a place called Merced, California. Are you familiar with California at all? So Merced, I'll tell you just a taste of it. Merced's not a great town. It's full of drugs and it's full of crime. I knew a man named Mike. The whole town knew him because Mike was homeless. Mike came in after his life had been changed to Merced College where I taught, and he was about to graduate, and I was on the graduation committee, and so we were interviewing people to give speeches, the graduation speech, and Mike came up, and I got an opportunity to ask him. I said, what happened? Like, how did you live for 10 years being homeless? And he just straight up looked at us and said, drugs. I said, drugs? 10 years! This man had 10 years of his life sucked away by being a slave to something he had no power over. He tried. So what happened? Well, a Mennonite family had taken him in and basically showed him Jesus. So as he was standing up there giving the graduation speech, because clearly we would pick him, that was an incredible story, he stood up there in front of 4,000 people and he told his life story, and he told how the family had helped him and how Merced College had helped him. And by the end of it, there were nearly 4,000 people in tears. Why were they crying? Why were they crying? Were they crying because of his misery? Sometimes we cry because of misery, but they weren't. They were crying out of joy. Why were they crying out of joy at this man's story? Why would they go on to say it was one of the most inspirational stories they've ever heard?
He overcame.
He overcame. Okay, I like that. He overcame. How did he overcome? We don't cry out of joy for someone's misery. That's just brutal. That would be a tragedy. No. We cry out of someone's redemption because that gives hope. That man had given these people hope. Now, why had it given them hope? I thought to myself, why in the world were these people crying over this man's redemption? They knew him. We knew Mike. He had been homeless for 10 years. We had seen him on the street. Some people had given him money, and there he stood after 10 years of misery in front of everybody, giving his redemption story. It broke hearts. It was wonderful. But they knew him. People could relate to Mike because some of these people in Merced were on drugs at that very moment. Some of them couldn't overcome their life's problems. And here's a man who had overcome, somehow, life's problems. Things that these people were dealing with it. You know what the punchline was? If this guy can do it, maybe there's hope for me. I could relate to Mike. I hadn't been a slave to drugs. But this guy was a slave to drugs. 10 years gone. I could relate to Mike because I had been a slave to sin. At that moment I wasn't, but I knew what that was like. Now maybe it wasn't drugs, maybe it was something else. But that feeling of your life being sucked away, I felt like Paul in Romans 7:15. For what I am doing, I do not understand. What I will to do, that I do not practice, but what I hate, that I do. What I hate, that I do. And I've asked myself, could God use us to give hope like Mike just did? Mike stood up there and told the story about overcoming drugs, and it changed people's lives in the audience. Could God use us to give hope like Mike? You see, we are all Mikes. Either in the past or right now. You see, we fall into two categories. Either you were a slave to sin, or you are right now. Those groups are the only two groups you could possibly fall in, right? So it speaks to all of us. We either were or we are. If you were a slave to sin, you know the burden of slavery. You know the loss of your joy. You know the loss of your freedom. You know the shame of being tied to something that you can't break. Try. But if you've been a slave, you also know the joy, the freedom, the hope that comes from breaking that. Have you experienced that? What if you are, though? Like, what if you're still a slave to sin right now? What if even you've been saved and you find yourself wrapped up in this, and you don't know how you got there? But even for a moment, I don't even want to be for a moment wrapped up in sin. I don't even want to be for a moment a slave to sin. Do you want that? So we find ourselves in two groups. Either we were, and we know that hope that Jesus has brought, or we are right now. Maybe it's not meth, maybe it's not drugs, maybe it's alcohol. I don't know personally. Maybe it's a little more subtle than that. Maybe it's gossip that you find yourself uncontrollably attached to. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's anger. Oh, that's my favorite one. Wow, that anger that is just, maybe you don't even show it to anybody. You're just angry all the time. I can relate to that. Like, I can get that. But there's something, there could be something inside of us that is our main driving sin. Have you experienced that? This thing that kind of gets you? We're going to meet a man today who's more than just a slave to sin. This guy was a slave to demons. He could not shake it. It was like Mike, right? It was sucking his life away. Would you turn with me to Mark chapter 5? We're going to read through verses 1 to 20. Are you guys there?
Once again.
Mark chapter 5, 1 through 20. Yeah, you got to hear it. Then they, being the disciples and Jesus, came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gadarenes. And when he had come out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no one could bind him, not even with chains, because he'd often been bound with shackles and chains. And the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces. Neither could anyone tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and he worshipped him. Talk about that word. And he cried out with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you, by God, that you do not torment me." For Jesus, he said to him, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." Then he asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, answering, "My name is Legion, for we are many." That's a gut check moment right there, isn't it? Ooh. Also, he begged him, being Jesus, earnestly, that he would not send him out of the country. Now, a large herd of swine was feeding there near the mountains. So all the demons begged him, saying, "Send us into the swine, that we may enter them." And at once Jesus gave them permission. Then the unclean spirits went out and entered the swine. There were about 2,000, and the herd ran violently down the steep place into the sea and drowned in the sea. Those who fed the swine fled and told it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that had happened. When they came to Jesus and saw the one who had been demon-possessed and had the legion sitting and clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who saw it told them how it happened to him who had been demon-possessed, and about the swine. Then they began to plead him, Jesus, to depart from their region. And when he got into the boat, the one who had been demon-possessed, begged him that he might be with him. However, Jesus did not permit him, but said, "Go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you, and how he has had compassion on you." Then he departed, the man departed, and began to proclaim in Decapolis, the region of 10 cities, all that Jesus had done for him, and marveled. Lord God, there is just so much that we know that you have the power to do. There's so much that we should trust you in, God. You have the power to save. You have the power to save this man. You have the power to save us, God. And through that, you give hope. I pray, Lord, that you would give us hope in the salvation that we have. I pray, God, that you would teach us what you want us to know. I pray, God, that you open our eyes and our hearts, that we can share this with each other to encourage, and with others that don't know you to inspire them to hope. I pray, Lord, that you would just give us hope right now and be with us. In Jesus' name, amen. Could you imagine being a disciple? Like, do you remember what just happened right before this? They crossed the sea. What happened on the sea? Do you remember? The storm. Seasoned sailors were fearing for their life on a sea they'd sailed often. And then they get out, and immediately this guy with like literally over 1,000 demons runs up to them. Could you imagine being a disciple and go, "Wow, this is pretty crazy"? And then right after that, you're going to get back in the boat and go across the sea that you just almost died in. Like, this is a wild ride, Jesus. Are you serious? That's crazy. Imagine that. Man, this man that meets you can't even be held with chains. You got to be thinking, like, if you're one of these guys, you've been told the story of Samson, right? This is like the demon version of Samson. Like, no one can stop him. Like, this man could not be held with chains, but he could be held with demons. He couldn't break the chains of the demons that bound him. Who could? Only Jesus. We can break lots of chains, people. We can break chains of a horrible job, or maybe a bad relationship. We can't break the chains of sin. Only Jesus can do that. And so they're about to see this Jesus who has calmed the storm, calming this man's mind, removing the demons, and later on, when he gets to Jerusalem, removing our sins. Look at the state this guy is in. Man, I don't know if I've ever read about someone in so much pain, because this guy came from the tombs, and no one can bind him. So if you read through that, what did people try to do to this guy? Like, they had him bound with chains. Think about that. Bound with chains, your whole life. Or I don't know how long this was. Probably not his whole life because he had friends. Like it says, go to your friends, go to your people. So, maybe his friends bound him in chains. If you're really bad friends, don't keep those sort of friends. But like, if you've been bound with chains and now you live among the tombs, he's screaming night and day and cutting himself with stones. Is the state of this man's life good? No, obviously not. This man is torturing himself. These demons are torturing this man. He's miserable. He's among the tombs. He's literally living among death. Can you visualize that? He's literally living among death. And that's what sin does to us. Romans 3:23 says the wages of sin is death. We are living among death. We're basically like this guy. So this guy's sitting here living among death. And sin does seem fun for a while, but really what's happening is we're torturing ourselves. We're enslaving ourselves to something that we can't get out of by ourselves. Then what happens? When this man saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him and cried out with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you, by God, that you do not torture me." Something's really interesting here. He worships him. That word, what it means is to bow down. To bow down like you're going to kiss someone's hand. So like picture a king. Even if you hate the king, what do? You show the king respect. Like even if you're in the court of the king and you don't like him, you're going to bow down and kiss his ring. Because if not, you're done. Right? That worship is that he's acknowledging that Jesus is God. He's acknowledging that implicitly, actually explicitly by kneeling down, but implicitly by the "do not torture me," he is submissive here. He knows that Jesus is in control. Jesus has power over him. He's acknowledging that Jesus has power over demons. Jesus has power over sin, even ours. And that gives hope. Imagine the disciples like sitting there after witnessing Jesus conquer the wind and the waves, and then this guy filled with demons who no one could control, kneeling down below the humble servant king. They had to know right then that something was kind of odd, because this guy had never knelt down to anyone. No one could control him. But here he is, acknowledging that Jesus has power over him. Jesus has power over our sin. That gives hope to us at least. You see, the thing is that if something can't help you with what you're struggling with, it won't cause you to hope, will it? Like, if you're in the middle of an emergency and you're surrounded by a fire, and someone says, "Oh yeah, I don't have a fire extinguisher, but here's a Dixie cup full of water." Does that have any power to help you? Are you going to hope, "Thank you for the water"? It's going to be steam in a moment. Like, you don't have hope in that water because it doesn't have the power to save you. You have hope in the thing that has power to save you. Jesus had power to save this man. Then what does Jesus do? After having this back and forth with demons, he says, "Yeah, you know what? Go ahead. Go into the swine." He frees this man. Can you picture like what Jesus is seeing? Like, picture this guy. He loves this man. He knows who he is. He knows he's bound by these demons. He can't get out of it. Like, can you imagine Jesus saying, "I didn't design you for this. I didn't design you to have your life stolen by sin, to literally be living among the tombs, to be living in death. I designed you for life." Man, I even tell you in John chapter 10, verse 10, "The thief does not come except to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life, and to have it more abundantly." Sometimes our circumstances, they make us think that God doesn't care. Can you imagine this guy? Like, if you were him and you were, I don't know, 10 years, I don't know. Can you imagine Mike, 10 years on the street? Now, was it God's fault he's on the street? If you were him, could you maybe contemplate the thoughts that are going through your head like God doesn't care about me though? Yeah, because we've all been there. Could you imagine this demon-possessed man cutting himself, screaming, possessed by demons? Maybe he didn't even know. Maybe it's gone on so long it's normal. But could you imagine his thoughts about God not caring for him? I can imagine that. I felt that. So, Jesus frees him. This man, even though maybe his circumstances had made him think that just God doesn't care, this man had been chosen to be saved before he was even born. You need to know this. If there's something that you would find encouraging, I'd like you to write down Ephesians chapter 1. Ephesians chapter 1, verses 4 through 7. I'm going to turn there now. I'm going to read it to you. But there's something you need to know about you. Just like this man was chosen to be saved before he was even born, you have been chosen to be saved from the foundation of the earth. Just as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestined us to adoption as sons by Jesus Christ to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will, to do the praise of the glory of his grace, by which he has made us accepted in the beloved. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, according to the riches of his grace. You've been chosen for this. This guy had been chosen to be saved. You've been chosen to be saved. Is that encouraging to you? Because here's the thing. If you know Jesus, it's not by accident. It's not like you stumbled upon him. He's called your name. He's chosen you. He wants you to be with him. Just like this guy, even if our circumstances are horrible, even if we've somehow given up that God doesn't care for us for the moment, that's not true. We can think that that's not true. We can think he doesn't care for us, that's a lie. He does. He's called us. He wants us. He wants us to live with him. He wants us to know him. He wants us to trust him. So how does he save them? It's kind of interesting. What's he do? What's he cast those demons into? Like 3 swine. Like five piggies. Like this little piggy went to market, this little piggy drowned in the lake. I mean, whatever. No! He casts these demons into swine. What's it tell you about the region? Where's he at? Why would there be pigs? Sure, they loved bacon. I love bacon. Were they Jews who loved bacon? Probably not. Jews don't eat pork, right? Oh, well, good Jews don't eat pork. This was certainly a region that was dominated by Gentiles. So here he is, not 1 pig, not 2 pigs, 2,000 pigs. Can you picture 2,000 pigs running down a hill? I can't either. Like, I've tried to wrap all week, I've been trying to wrap my head around this. I even spoke to a friend whose father and brother raised pigs. They have like 2,400 pigs. It's like a very, very large operation. So I asked, are pigs herd animals? And I learned they sort of make friends and they like to congregate. They're very social. But they said they would never, 2,000 of them at the same time, run down the hill. Like, they wouldn't do that. I said, okay. How big of a barn do you have to hold 2,400 pigs? It cost over $1 million. Just for the barn. Okay. There's 2,000 pigs. How many people, without a barn, probably, would it take to wrangle 2,000 of anything? Keep in mind, in our town, there's like 2,500 people. In the proper of Bonner's Ferry, there's like, what, 12,000 or counting. But can you imagine 2,000 people and getting them to do anything? How many people would that take? How many people would it take to feed 2,000 pigs. Probably no small amount. So there's more than one or two of them who are saying the same thing to the whole town. So lots of people. How many swine herds? I have no idea, but probably more than 2 or 3. I also want you to think about what the story was. All our pigs are dead. Not half. All our pigs are dead. Even in today's money, like, I don't know how much a pig costs. I get it from a friend. It's reasonable. Maybe he's really jacking the price up. But even if you paid $500 for a pig, what's a pig? $500 to $1,000 maybe, somewhere in there. If you go low end, okay, it's way low end, Charlotte. I've never got a pig for $350. Maybe like a baby midget pig. I don't know. Say what now? Okay, I'm getting ripped off apparently. So let's say that you do fair market price. You don't have friends like Charlotte here. And you pay somewhere between $500 and $1,000 for a pig. Good sized pig. Even at $500, in today's money, that is $1 million loss. 2,000 pigs at $500, $1 million, if my math is right. Don't check me. At $1,000, that's a $2 million loss. If it's $1,000 a pig. Would you be mad? If I learned that 2,000 pigs, maybe this was the whole town's pigs, I have no idea, but if 2,000 pigs had suddenly died and you have a $1 to $2 million loss, what do you want to do to the guy who just killed your pigs? You're not going to want him around. Why not? Why would you want him around?
Because he killed your pig.
He killed your pigs! It's a huge loss!
Thank you.
Thank you for that one. People, when they show up after being told this, are shocked and they're scared. First, they're shocked. Why are they shocked? Then they came to Jesus and saw the one who had been demon-possessed and had legion sitting and clothed in his right mind. In his right mind. What? Wait a minute, Demon Joe? That's that guy. Like, we've had to have him in chains, and now he's... Hang on. No. Because you know why? Deep down inside, we know that people don't change. Like, not for the better, not really permanently. You see this all the time. You see it with life-dominating sin. Someone might have one sin, they go, oh, I'm done with that, but I've just secretly switched it to something else. Have you seen that before? They just go from one to another, to another, to another. They're not free from slavery, they just changed the name of their master. That's what they've done. They're still enslaved to something. People don't change. Except for God. God's the only one who can cause that permanent change, who can free us from the slavery of sin, free us from demons permanently. They saw it and they said, wait a minute. This isn't fake. This is real. You see, when we tell people about what God has done for us, they will first judge if it's real. And second, if it is, they will be shocked. You'll wait. How did you change? Then they were scared. Why were they scared? That's power. So much power. They may have wanted this man saved. We do that, right? We want people to better themselves. Our world wants people to better themselves. There's so many self-help books. Maybe they authentically want us to get better, but not by the one who can actually do it. They didn't want it to be Jesus causing the change. Why? Because it threatens their lifestyle. It threatened these people's livelihood. They lost $1 million to $2 million in today's money. Maybe back then it was more, I don't know. But they were afraid that Jesus was going to destroy their lives. He had just destroyed livelihoods, perhaps. Can you see it? Like if you just lost a lot of money and maybe how you're going to eat because Jesus saved this man's life, firstly, he cares more about the man than about their money. He cares more about saving this person than what you can make. More about this guy than what he can do for you. Like, he's here to save souls. He came to, last week we learned, to seek and to save that which is lost. This man was lost. He came to seek and save that. He didn't care about pigs. He cares about people. That's what he cares about. They're afraid that Jesus is going to destroy their lives. And I really want you to grasp this. And this is what we run into. To those who love sin, your freedom will be scary, terrifying. Why? Because your freedom makes them think that Jesus will threaten their lifestyle. Makes them think that somehow that Jesus is going to take and destroy their lives. Yes! If you live in death, Jesus is going to destroy the death. That's great news, but if you love the death, what do you want to get rid of it? No, our world doesn't want to see that. Like when we get freed from sin, it will scare a lot of people because it threatens their lifestyle. Are you hanging with me, folks? Okay. To those who want to be free from sin, it will bring peace. It will bring hope. This man was clothed and in his right mind, the first peace he'd had in probably a very long time. To those who want the freedom, your salvation, your freedom, will bring hope and a little peace. So, Jesus is about to get back in the boat, and the past demon-possessed man begged him that he might go with him, but Jesus did not permit him, but said, "Go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he has had compassion on you." Where was his home? Where was his home? It wasn't Jerusalem. It was this place, Decapolis, this region of 10 cities. Was it with Jesus? Jesus people at Jesus' home? No. Why would he be told to go home? Now, the first response is, this is awesome because when you get saved by Jesus, you should want to be with Jesus, right? You should be like, thanks, I'm going to go my way. That's not at all like the response that we have when we come to faith. It's a, Jesus, thank you so much. Let me be with you. Let me never depart from you. Because over here is death and you just killed the death. Over here is sin I've been tied to, but I want to be here. I want to be with you. He has the right heart. But Jesus says no. Why does he say no? If this man had gone with Jesus across the sea back to the region of where it was mostly Jewish populated, would he have impact? Probably some, because he could say, much like we say, hey, I was this one way and now I'm this way. And people go, hey, that's really cool, that's great. Where was he sent instead? Where was he sent instead? Home. Why? They knew him. Mike's story would have had nearly zero impact here. You didn't know Mike. People in Merced, they knew Mike for 10 years on the street. We saw him. We all knew him. It wasn't a huge town, a bigger town than this, but we saw Mike. He was well known. He went home where he'd have the most impact, not with the Jews across the sea, with his friends. Wait a minute, his friends. People knew this guy before. Like they'd known Demon Joe. I don't know if his name was Joe, by the way. I have no idea, but they knew him. Wouldn't they have asked questions? What happened? Like, I know that you were bound with chains and you broke them, and I know you cut yourself. I see the scars. I've heard you scream at night in the tombs. I've heard that. What happened? What would his response be? This man named Jesus. Whoa! Wait, you were this way, and a man named Jesus? Tell me more about that. Like, what in the world? Then what would the next thought be? You were messed up. Like, there was something seriously wrong with you, and I know that you couldn't overcome it. If this guy can do it, surely there's hope for me. If this guy can do it, completely possessed by 1,000 demons, then surely there's hope for me. That salvation, that freedom to those who want it is tremendous hope. We're all lied to and told you'll never overcome these things. You are bound. This is how you were born. You'll never change it. Just so live in that and be proud of it. That's a lie. Jesus can change that. He has. It's right here. And if this guy can do it, there's hope for us. If this guy can do it, surely there's hope for us in that salvation. He was saved, and he was freed, and it gave people hope. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been freed. For a lot of us in here, we have been saved. Have you been saved? Have you been freed? You have this exact same ability to give hope if you share it. He went home. What if he had gone home, got himself a nice little house, middle of the woods, and told no one about what Jesus had done? Would he have hope? Yes. Would the people of the town, filled with Gentiles, by the way, have hope? Zero. You have the ability to share the hope if you share it. Do you remember Zacchaeus? Justin learned about it last week. Justin taught us last week about Zacchaeus. Here was Jesus, right? Jesus knows he's on his death march to Jerusalem. He knows he's marching to the cross. He's on his mission. He knows he's about to die, and he's willing to do it to save us from sin. The people around him thought Jesus is going to bring about his kingdom right now. They thought, this is the moment. Jesus is going to be king. We're going to beat the Romans. This is fantastic. And Jesus is walking through, and he stops, and he looks up. He goes, come here, Zacchaeus. And he brings down Zacchaeus. What was the response of the people around him? Like, what did they do? Were they thrilled? No, they were angry. Why were they angry? This guy didn't deserve to be saved. This little guy, he's been cheating us out of money for years. They witnessed authentic repentance. Jesus has stopped what they thought was the kingdom of God for one man. Jesus leaves the 99 to chase after the one. He stops and they're angry about it. But what happened? What would happen after that? Like after Jesus says, today salvation has come to the house of Zacchaeus, what would happen in their minds? Here was a guy who did not deserve to be saved. You see, the Pharisees had told us, only the righteous will be saved. And here this Jesus is saying, I will save you and then you'll become righteous. That's a reversal. That's completely different. So if they were not a Pharisee, if they were someone who was labeled as unrighteous, and they just witnessed Zacchaeus being saved, what goes on in their head? Whoa. Wait a minute. If this guy can be saved, maybe there's hope for me. If Mike can be saved, maybe there's hope for me. If this demon-possessed man can be saved, maybe there's hope for me. If Zacchaeus can be saved, maybe there's hope for me. Maybe you are someone's Zacchaeus. Maybe you are someone's Mike. Maybe someone's going to look at you and say, if this person can be saved, don't look at that, Nathan. This is water on the stage. I get thirsty sometimes. Someone might look at you and say, I know they would for me, and say, if this person, knowing who they were, has been saved, maybe there's hope. Maybe there's hope for me. You see, our salvation, our freedom gives hope to those people who want it, and people are looking. So, where does it come from? Where's the salvation come from? It comes only from Jesus. Our self-help books won't help, really. Not permanently. But Jesus does. If you have been saved and freed from that slavery, from that sin, share how Jesus has freed you. If you still find yourself enslaved, this is a hard word. If you've been saved and you find yourself still in slavery to sin, then your enslavement is your own choice. Jesus has freed us from that. I'm going to go through a few very quickly. Romans 6:19. If you want to write them down, you can. Look at them a little bit later. But I'm going to read them to you very quickly. Romans 6:19. I speak in human terms because of the weakness of your flesh. For just as you presented your members as slaves of uncleanness and of lawlessness, leading to more lawlessness, so now present your members as slaves to righteousness for holiness. Colossians 3:5. Therefore put to death your members which are on the earth: fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, covetousness, which is idolatry. Galatians 5:1. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty by which Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with the yoke of bondage. He's talking about bondage to the law. The law brings the curse. And then also Galatians 5:13. For you, brethren, have been called to liberty, only do not use your liberty as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. We have that freedom, but if we find ourselves bound again, man, don't give up the freedom for the slavery. You can only choose one master. So what if that's you? Like, what do you do about it? Firstly, meet Jesus again. Really come to him again. If that's where you find yourself, pray. Most importantly, love your Jesus more than you love your sin. He will break it. He'll break the chain of your sin, just like he did for the demon-possessed man, just like he did for Zacchaeus. He will break the greed, he'll break the lust, he'll break the anger, he'll break whatever you're dealing with. But you do have to come to him. You do have to meet your real Jesus and love him more than you love your sin. It'll give hope when you share that. It will impact those people who know you, and it will give them hope. Real hope that doesn't disappoint. Romans chapter 5, verses 3 to 5 tell us that. Perseverance brings character, character, hope. Hope doesn't disappoint. Why? We'll get through that. Why doesn't hope disappoint? Say that again.
The love of God has been poured out into your heart.
Now hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has been poured out in our hearts by the Holy Spirit who is given to us. The Holy Spirit gives us hope. How do you get the hope? How do you get the Holy Spirit? Jesus. He's imparted that to us when he ascended to heaven. He said, I will give to you a helper. Don't be sad that I go. If I don't go, the helper can't come. What's the helper do? Gives us hope. Gives us the power for freedom over sin. That is the hope that our world's looking for right now. Have you looked around and seen the hopelessness? I teach school, I teach college, but I taught high school, and this was years ago, and even then, it's a different story. This was 14 years ago that I stopped teaching high school. Things have changed a lot in 14 years. Like a lot. But even then, students were down this path of not really having a whole lot of hope. Now they're enslaved to so many things, it's not even funny. Drugs? Name your poison. It's different for everybody. I could go through a list. I could tell you, yeah, for some people it's drugs they're enslaved to. For some people it's things they shouldn't be looking at. I hesitate to use I use a euphemism for that because I don't really want to mention the name in front of little kids. They're in here. But maybe it's not just those things. They're enslaved to ideas about what their bodies are telling them. Literally, every time they look in the mirror, they're arguing what their bodies are telling them. They're enslaved to philosophies that have no place in our heads, that turn them away from God. They're so hopeless. Suicide is ridiculous levels. I don't know if it's been that bad. You might be able to correct me and say it's been bad at some other time, but I know it's bad now. Why? People are searching for freedom from their burdens in every wrong place. All these wrong places. Do you know the right place to search? Where? Where can people find real freedom? Real freedom from their sin, real freedom from the burdens, real hope. Where can they find it? If we know it, it's Jesus. How do we know it? We've been saved. That's where real hope comes from. You have this hope to give. Only Jesus can save, and only Jesus can bring this freedom. So here's my question to you. Do you know a person like Mike? Or a person like Joe, Demon Joe? Do you know someone who they're in slavery, and maybe they don't even know it? Maybe it's gone on so long that it's just normal. Has that happened? Like, have you ever experienced that? Or have you ever seen that before in someone's life? Like, this is just the way it is. Like, I was born this way. Of course you're born that way. Yes, you are. We're all born in sin. That's why we have to be born again. You are born one way. We're born in the flesh. That's why we have to be born in the Spirit. You have to be born again in order to experience that freedom. Because we are tied to the flesh without it. The only way to freedom is through Jesus. If you know someone like that, who it's gone on so long that it's normal, maybe they don't even see what's gone on, I would encourage you strongly to share what Jesus has done for you. Because that's what this demon-possessed man was told to do. You see, he wasn't told, go home and convince everybody that they need God. Go home and convince everybody that Jesus can help you. That can be argued with, actually. Because you say, hey, you need God. And they say, no, I don't. You go, Jesus can help you. No, he can't. Yes, he can. No, he can't. Yes, he can. No, he can't. Now, what was he told to do? Go home and share how God has helped you. You see, when you shared that, you say, I was this way. You knew me. I'm now this way. You know me. What's the difference? Jesus. Unarguable. They cannot argue. No, it wasn't Jesus. I experienced it. I'm me. I know. He was told, go home and share what the Lord has done for you. That was his encouragement. He went to the people who knew him, the people he knew, and he shared what God had done. That's simple. It's very simple. But he was willing to do it. And what did it do? Brought possibly an entire city. He said all marveled. Brought them at least the knowledge of Jesus, what Jesus can do, and probably hope. Because there's not a lot of hope back then. There was not a lot of hope right now. People are driving for that hope. We're all past slaves. We're all past slaves. We might be some Zacchaeus, we might be some as Mike, but the point is, if we can be saved, then surely there's hope for the world. We all know what we've done. And Jesus has removed it. It's tremendous hope. You do not have to look back at that sin and say, I'm convicted of that. No. Jesus removed the conviction. He took it away. There's hope in that. If we share it, then people will gain that hope. Those who want the freedom. Share your freedom and help people find hope in the promises of God, because they're real. Would you pray with me? Lord, thank you so much for this day, for the truth that you bring hope, that you've saved us, that just like the demon-possessed man, we were chosen from foundation of earth to be saved, to be with you. Lord, I pray that we may share what you have done with us to our friends, our family, to go and let people know the truth of who you are in our lives, Lord, so that maybe they would see that you are the only way to get hope, that you are the only way to be freed from their bondage, that they would not look to the world to satisfy the yearning of their heart for freedom, God, but they would look to you. Lord, I pray that as we go out, that we may know that salvation gives hope, that we may exhibit that we would not turn back that we would not be hopeless ourselves, God, because we have the tremendous hope. The hope of salvation never disappoints, Lord. I pray that you would just burn that into our hearts and our minds, that we may always hope in you. In Jesus' name, amen.